Oh, you know what they say. Everyone's a little bit Irish on St. Patrick's Day. What was that? My accent is deplorable and I should be ashamed. Yeah, you're probably right. I mean, my Irish grandmother is probably rolling in her grave. This is Movie Night. Hello and welcome to Movie Night, YouTube's #1 most viewed movie review show. I'm your host, Jonathan Paula. With St. Patrick's Day just around the corner, tonight's theme will be Irish-related films, and we begin with Far and Away. This PG-13 rated romantic dramedy was released in May of 1992, starring husband and wife couple Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman, which more than doubled its $60 million budget. Ron Howard directs the lengthy 140-minute adventure story about two Irish immigrants trying to make it in America, and eventually secure themselves a parcel of land during the famous Oklahoma land run of 1893. Attempting their best Irish accents throughout, the two attractive leads are stubbornly attempting to hide their true feelings for one another, while simultaneously trying to make a good impression. Their chemistry is obviously undeniable. These two were happily married and in love during filming, and the strength of their on-screen relationship is easily this film's strongest aspect.
When I saw that, I realized you could be very useful to me.
Useful, could I?
Yes! You could be my serving boy.
Oh, I see. I could polish your boots for you.
They will need to polish now and then.
Right. I could make you a cup of tea.
When tea time calls for it, yes.
I'll throw the tea in your face and I'll piss on your boots before I serve the likes of you. Get up!
A playful scene where they disrobe on opposite sides of a thin curtain with both parties sneaking peeks at one another is particularly cute. TV veterans Thomas Gibson from Dharma and Greg and Colm Meaney from Deep Space Nine both do a good job in their limited antagonist supporting roles, clearly enjoying the opportunity to explore the authentic 19th century sets. But let's not forget a contrived appearance by Ron's favorite actor, his younger brother Clint, playing a misogynistic factory boss. Howard is able to capture the charm and personality of these characters brilliantly, but the pacing is extremely hampered by the very overt plot turns, with each act of the film taking place in a radically new location, first Ireland, then Boston, then the Wild West. It honestly feels like three separate films by the end, with the final portion being the weakest, even though it does contain the hugely impressive land rush scene. A large subplot revolving around Cruise's advancement in an underground fighting ring, where he literally does circles around the larger men's slower, more traditional fighting style, is an enjoyable sequence for sure, but this is a romance picture, not Rocky, and it feels forced and out of place. The slow and steady visual style is supported by a majestic, but ultimately lesser effort from famed composer John Williams. Unsure of its identity though, this picture is never truly effective, as it seems afraid to take itself seriously. When one character dies early in a somber moment, he immediately returns to life, simply to deliver a joke, before shuffling back off the mortal coil again. Bouncing from serious drama to quirky comedy to adventure epic, it's these tonal shifts that hurt the picture the most, even if many of the individual elements seemingly work well. Far and Away feels like separate, decent elements mashed together. Those are my thoughts, now let's check out some of yours. The Rate-O-Matic for Far and Away, a double 5. The usually talented group of people involved didn't necessarily do a bad job here, but the film never quite gels and is rarely memorable or truly entertaining. It's for this reason we both scored it an alright. For tonight's poll question, who is your favorite Irish actor or actress? Leave your comment as a response below. Next up tonight, let's review the Boondock Saints. This low-budget action film by young musician-turned-writer-director Troy Duffy saw only a very limited release in January of 1999, but has since gained a cult following, grossing $50 million on home video. Nearly indistinguishable both in appearance, character traits, and story arcs, Sean Patrick Flannery and Norman Reedus star as the title characters, two Irish brothers from Boston who take it upon themselves to begin dishing out vigilante justice, executing numerous members of the local mafia. This extremely R-rated crime thriller drops almost as many victims as it does F-bombs. It is a violent, bloody, yet strangely cathartic experience. Opening with heaps of unnecessary on-screen text exposition, we hear a priest set the scene when he warns his parish, evil which we must fear most is the indifference of good men. Not much of the cast is particularly impressive. They're Irish blokes playing, well, Irish blokes. The standout performer though is clearly the film's biggest name, Willem Dafoe, as an eccentric, homosexual, troubled, and humorously condescending FBI special agent, tasked with investigating the half-dozen crime scenes the Saints leave in their wake.
You guys ready for this? This was no gangland assassination, though creative. It was way too sloppy. Something went wrong here. This has personal written all over it.
Agent Smith, Yeah, this is all illegal loft housing. There's no manager in the premises. Well, they found a lady on the 4th floor, said she had water dripping down her whole place. Started just this morning.
4th floor, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Then we're heading to the 5th.
Feeling like a bad mixture of The Godfather, an episode of Law & Order, and a below-average Quentin Tarantino flick, this 108-minute drama is certainly enthusiastic, but it ultimately pretends to be far cleverer than it actually is. Watching charismatic actors dish out unrelenting violence to evil mob bosses is supremely entertaining, especially with its sharp and memorable dialogue. But when the film simply repeats the same basic sequence 5 more times, it definitely results in a hollow experience. When the film finally does turn a corner, the climax is a bit of a disappointment, with everything slowing down for a moral discussion and too many religious overtones. Often executed in stylized, slow-motion flashbacks, the gun battles and fight scenes are decently choreographed, if entirely unrealistic. Weird cutaways like Defoe in bed with another man, or a scene where a cat is accidentally blasted all over a wall, do nothing to advance the plot and feel completely out of step with the film's more serious tone. The editing and visuals are fast and slick, however, and one scene where Defoe is recounting a crime scene theory that has him physically occupying the space he's describing is very cool to watch unfold. On a visceral level, this picture does a great job of connecting with the audience emotionally. You want to see the good guys kill the bad guys. But on an actual filmmaking level, it's detrimentally ambitious, heavy-handed, and not always thrilling. The Boondock Saints. Fun, blunt enjoyment, but repetitive. Now let's see what you wrote about this film in the YouTube comments. And now our scores for the Boondock Saints, a 9 and a 6. Many cite this as a personal favorite, a de facto cult classic. It's no surprise the younger, male-oriented MovieNight audience scored this an awesome. With underdeveloped leads, a tiresome story, and religious judgment used as a plot device, I definitely feel like this picture is overrated. Fun dialogue, cool bloodbaths, and a brilliant performance from Defoe, this is merely a poor man's action thriller masquerading as art. I thought it was good though. And now a word from our sponsor. For $30 a month, MoviePass is a new service that allows you to see unlimited movies at your local theater. You get a special card like this one, and you simply use your smartphone to load cash onto it anytime you want to see a film, even if you're going to a midnight release of a major blockbuster. Get $10 off your first month by visiting moviepass.com/jogwheel to join today, and help support Movie Night too. Our final St. Patrick's themed movie is Gangs of New York. Delayed an entire year following massive post-production issues, this historical epic by famed director Martin Scorsese was released during the height of award season in December of 2002, eventually doubling its $100 million budget. Nominated for an impressive 10 Oscars, but failing to win any of them, Leonardo DiCaprio stars as a young Irish immigrant living in New York during the 1860s, who goes undercover plotting against the leader of a gang of Native Americans, led by Daniel Day-Lewis. DiCaprio is seamless in the role, faux accent and all, chewing through the wordy and period-accurate dialect effortlessly. In one of his many nominated roles, Day-Lewis is astonishingly believable as always, speaking with a guttural, intellectual tone, respectful of his enemies but entirely uncompromising and frightening when dealing with them. Remarking on his longevity, he favors the spectacle of fearsome acts. Decently holding her own opposite these acting legends, Cameron Diaz is featured as the love interest and female foil as she begins a relationship with Leo by attempting to pick his pocket. John C. Reilly, Jim Broadbent, Brendan Gleeson, and Liam Neeson round out the hugely talented supporting cast, but none of them are featured or developed as much as I would have hoped. Expertly photographed, there's no denying the amazing aptitude at which 19th century New York is recreated. Every last element is surprisingly detailed and authentic. Attempting to balance plot threads involving class warfare struggles, the New York draft riots of 1863, a love story, a revenge plot, and Manhattan politics, Scorsese's ambition unfortunately gets the better of him, as even this picture's liberal 166-minute runtime isn't enough to make a compelling picture out of everything. Scored beautifully and somberly by Howard Shore, this R-rated film functions almost more effectively as an educational lesson on immigration relations during the Civil War than it does as a cohesive drama. The opening and closing battle sequences are, however, rather amazing. Thrilling, gritty, violent, emotional, and brilliantly shot. But the forgetful, confusing, and haphazard middle 2 hours represent nothing but wasted potential. powerful image is the last, a shot of a grave overlooking Manhattan, as the scene slowly fades forward in time, ending with the Twin Towers proudly on display. When it works, the experience here is undeniably moving, engrossing, and exciting. But when it's surrounded by such a poorly paced and bloated plot, even the amazing acting, visuals, and direction get overlooked. Gangs of New York. Forgettable story, arrestingly dramatic action. Now here's some of your reviews from the YouTube comments. Gangs of New York, an 8 and a 7. You applauded the film's visuals and acting, but didn't care for the lackluster story, rating the film a great. I scored the film 1 point lower, but I definitely agree with that assessment. It was just too bloated for its own good. Unfortunately, not one of Marty's better pictures. But definitely riveting at times. I thought it was cool. Now let's take a look at what's currently playing in theaters with some of your tweet critiques. If you see a new movie in theaters, tweet your review with the JPMN hashtag to have it featured on the show. Next week, we'll review some overlooked movies that are still playing in theaters. Snitch, starring Dwayne Johnson, the Hangover-style comedy 21 and Over, and the big-budget fairy tale adaptation, Jack the Giant Slayer. Let me know what you think about these movies by voting in the polls below or by leaving a comment review. And don't worry if you haven't seen them yet, you can pick up MoviePass, check them out this weekend, and get back to me by next week's episode. And please subscribe to the MovieNight Archive channel for my exclusive trailer commentaries and an organized library of all our past reviews. Once again, my name is Jonathan Paula. Thank you for watching Movie Night. I hope to see you right back here next Friday.